Hi, Mike.
Yep.
You mentioned that you give us 2 days, and after that, this will be transferred to another site. How does it affect us if we want to do exercise on our own?
So, the place that would move when the projects are done, I'm still sharing my screen, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So, when you come over here with the hamburger icon, you'd click your workspace and you'd see the project here.
So we use the same link that you give, but I go back to your space.
Our Studio Cloud instead. So when it comes in, and just putting that link into the Zoom chat, that workspace link that was giving you access will it won't be active anymore. But when you come into our Studio Cloud, when you're in here, you have this personal workspace area.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just log into our Studio Cloud, you'll see it under your projects. And your projects is your own personal area. So this is the RTP area that I created is like a project space that we've made for the workshop today, so that I can share the assignment with you all, and that you can all have access to this. The personal workspace is like your own personal area. From your perspective, it won't be very different. It's just once you open it, it's going to be the same project and everything. It's just moving it from a shared space to into your own personal space.
So what link should I use to get into?
If you log into our Studio Cloud. Yeah, so if let me log out here just so that I can show you how you get there. How on earth do I log out? Here. All right, so when you come into already a user login, whatever credentials you use, my dog. And then you see how when this opens, it's in, it says your workspace. It'll be there.
Okay, just use the link that you provide, and then you can see your project. They recognize because you log in.
Right.
Basically. Okay. What does the package per to? I mean, I'm a cat lover. I see you have PURR. I don't know why there's not one for dog, and there's cat functions too.
Her is probably one of my favorite libraries. It helps with vectorization, and that's a concept that we're not going to cover in this. But so in SAS, everything's a data set. Even when you set a macro variable, that macro variable is stored in a data set under the hood that you just don't usually see. In R, everything is a vector. So even a single character string is just a vector of length 1. And per is a library that helps with applying vectorized functions. And the principle of that is just, if I'm going to, if you have a function that does an operation on one variable, it's just looping over multiple of those values in the same way that if you say, I want to take the variable x and add 10 to it, what you're doing is adding 10 to every value within the vector of x. So per is a suite of functions that make vectorization easier. When you're programming, vectorization is something that's easy to do inefficiently. So per also kind of helps enforce proper programming practices without you having to think much about it. Like if you do a vectorized function, you should allocate the memory beforehand so that you're not continually appending the vector and everything. Per just makes it so that you don't have to think about it. When you get there, it's one of my favorite packages.
Okay, I see. When you have chunks of code and all these used interactively, how do you save it in a .r or .rmd file then?
So my computer's fritzing a little bit. Give me a second. There we go. All right. So if I get back to the workspace area and I come into my assignment. So it's very, very similar to the process of making a SAS program. You create a new script. So up here, you can either go into File, New File, R script, or you have the little shortcut here. That's the New File button. You create a new R script. You add your code in here, and then you file, save as, and I'll go through that again. File.
So you'll highlight it, right?
You don't need to highlight it if it's in this text file here. So in Untitled 2.
In your editor or something?
If you type it in here, so anything that I'm adding into this file, I'm just going to make it into the file. So what you do is you have save icons. If it's not a saved file, I'm going to say my program 2. I'll save it. You select the directory. And then I'll X out of that here. My program 2. I open it and all of my content's there. So same idea.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay. So Bridget, your question about ProcFreak we'll get to in this next section. And then we'll answer that last one in the Q&A. Jess, do you want to take over and do breakout for us here?
Yes. I'll
let you take over the screen share.
Okay. And hopefully, there we go. So now we are going to talk a little bit. I think it's very interesting and fun that I always get to do the sections that involve SAS. And I was not a SAS user, but I'm pretty excited about this because I really like these functions in R. They're incredibly useful for looking at your data, getting an idea of what is happening in your data frames. So we're going to talk a little bit about the function in R called summarize, and then the function in R called count. And their counterparts are roughly sort of a proc mean or proc univariate, and then ProcFreak. Great. So with summarize in R, what's great is that it can takes your data frame, and if you give it some descriptive statistics, it will create a new sort of summary data frame with those results. So in this case, if you're looking at the data frame we started with, you want to take sort of taking the mean, standard deviation, the min and max of this column. To note, just as we talked about before, if there were any NAs in the B variable, we would have to make sure that we included the argument na.rm equals true. And I know that seems a little bit cumbersome. It's sort of one of the ways that R is. And also, I do find it helpful that way. It's a good way for me to realize when I have an NA or a missing value in a data set that definitely shouldn't be there. So that's an important thing to note. So summarize, there are any function that takes the data and produces sort of one output or one value can be used within the summarize function. So within summarize, so if you summarize, you're looking just sort of across one column. You can also group to do descriptive statistics by specific group, grouping in another variable. So in this case, as an example here, the A variable has two groups, X and Y, and we want to group by the variables in A to summarize and get the mean, the standard deviation, et cetera, of those in column or variable B. So this is really useful to group these variables together and to be able to calculate your summary statistics by group, especially when you have a lot of different groups and you don't have to break it out into different sort of subsets beforehand. It just is group by. And as mentioned before, you don't need to arrange or order. When you're using group by, it will collect the group on its own. So it just needs to, it doesn't need to be in any specific order or arranged. So moving right along, so there's a few different ways to count. If you just need to take account of, the categorical variables that you have. And you can do this within the, we talked about using, now we're grouping by variable B, which has dog, cat, rabbits, different animals. And then to do a count, we can use the summarize function, and then within that, create a new variable that will count, and we use the n function, which has to be used within the summarize function, and it just provides a count of everything in that group. So this is one way to count. I will often count this way if I'm already looking and doing summarize on some other things. But the other method for counting is to simply use the count function. What's nice about this is that you don't need to include it within a summarize statement. In fact, I think that it might produce an error if you try. But so count should be used on its own. And in this case, you just tell it, you give it the column that you want to count, and it will give you the results.
Hey, Jessica, for the summarize function, can we do the same thing like a count function, like directly using the parameter, right, without specifying mean, max, like standard deviation, that kind of things? We just use summarize brackets and B like that. Is that
so you have to, the summarize function, what it does is it's telling, it is saying that we are calling a function that will take, or a collection of functions that will take all of these variables and return one output. So you can't just say sort of summarize B and it will provide sort of all of the counts or the bins and maxes. You have to specify what function within summarize that you're looking for. Does that answer the question, or am I off base?
Yeah, understood. Yeah, we do need to specify which stats need to be summarized. And
yes.
For the n count, do we need to, is a missing, I mean, the row with missing value still counted?
The row is missing a value. It will be, you will see another category as an NA.
Okay. So also I think we need to specify, as you mentioned, NA dot NM equal true, something like to exclude that row, correct?
Yes, I'm trying to think of
yeah, in the descriptive statistics function, and if you look at the Q&A answered, I answered that question for Bridget because she had the same question. If you're looking at standard deviation, okay, you're looking at counting, right?
Yes.
What does counting do with it?
Exactly. That's what I was saying. I would have to try this in a moment to
The test.
I think it produces an NA section, and if you're missing a value, and it'll say NA1.
I see. It's like a different group.
Right. If it would count the missing itself as another group and give you basically a count of how many were missing. I'm pretty sure about that. Mike can.
But if we didn't group by, it will count all of them, including the missing rows.
Yes.
Okay.
that is something to watch out for. That I think that it does count. It will count that because the row is present.
It will count NAs as if they're another category. So if it's if it's a distinct value, that's how that will be treated. If it's I think it would behave the same for groups as well. So NAs will show up in their own distinct group.
Yes. All right, moving on. So counting groups. We talked a little bit about grouped counting, but continuing on here, this is just, you can group by as many groups as you have, and it will count accordingly. This is, like I said, it becomes very useful when you have, when you want to look at a lot of results for many, many subsets at once. You can also group by before running the count function, and then you'll get an answer that way as well. And then another way, there's a lot of different ways to count. You sort of, pick your favorite. I think that I most frequently count this way. That's just the way that I remember to, but I always forget that you can actually count and it will group automatically within the count function itself. That's one of the reasons that sometimes people like to use count, is that it's just less overall, but it really is sort of a preference as to how do things work and what you like to do. So in the same way that this is counting just as it was in the other examples. Okay. So I know we want to move right along. We've got not a ton of time. We're going to, in this case, we're going to summarize the ages of subjects across some different treatment groups. This is definitely one of the great ways to use summarize, and then count the number of participants in the age groups across treatment groups. Would you like me to walk through it, Mike? I just have to bring up the resume.
I will bring it up.
Okay.
All right. Back to, and I'm sharing the editor, correct? All right.
Yes.
All right. And again, breakout 4. You have the same set of files. So I'm going to open up the helper file here. Be sure to rerun your data import because we have some structuring that we're doing here, building upon some of the other things we did. We have that safety flag you derived earlier, and we have the age group in there as well, and we pick out some of the data that we're going to do. So for the age variable, you're going to derive age across the treatment groups of ARM. So you're doing some grouping, you're doing some descriptive statistics. And then counting, you're going to count the number of subjects in age group 1. So doesn't this start to feel like how you begin the derivations of a demographics table? So for the age summary, that's what you're going to do. We have your spots to fill in for your grouping variables. For the functions that you're going to use, the variable names that we are stating here may or may not be the same names as the functions that you want to use to do the descriptive statistics. But we also have, and I forgot about this, we have some helpful things on this website. If you go to resources, we have the names of all of the functions that are really relevant for what you're doing today. And I managed to not include those for the descriptive statistics functions that you're using. So go me. But hint, hint, these are the functions that you're using to do those descriptive statistics that we're requesting from you. You have the count function that you'll be deriving as well. And we set you up there to do what you need to do. So we are at 12:45. This is going to have to consume the last 15 minutes of the workshop that we're doing today. So we're here, ask questions if you need it. And let's get going. So breakout 4. And we'll ride this right out to the end of the seminar. Or I'm gonna stop at 12:56. So you're gonna get 11 minutes on this one, 12:56, so that we can just run through some wrap up material that we have. Alrighty. So I want to take a quick minute here to go through just a little bit more. Not from the beginning. All right, so, well, my computer does not like going from presenter view out of presenter view. I'm going to put it back. I am still sharing my slide deck, right?
Yes.
All right, great. So what we taught you today and what we started to show you were some of the fundamentals of using the tidyverse. The area of R programming in pharma has been rapidly growing. There's been a big community around this in the pharma space now. Over the last 2 or 3 years, Taurus only started in 2020, and it's just kind of exploded since then. There's a lot of other packages that help you in clinical activities today that companies have open sourced. So Taurus itself has the package tplier for doing clinical data summaries, and Pharma RTF for writing out or for helping deliver the RTF documents in the format that we're used to receiving, to handle in-session memory or in-session metadata for reading in things like specs and then applying that information down into your data. There's Metacore, Timber for logging. Well, that's actually LogRx now. That was a recent rename. Exporter for generating the version 5 SAS export files. Roche has R tables. Merck made R to RTF and package late. GSK and Roche and a lot of other companies have now been collaborating on Admiral for generating Atom data and helping with a lot of the computations that we do in that world. diffDF is your proc compare in SAS or in the R world, so that you can compare two data frames. To try to get an idea of a little bit of how this can help your programming world. So if I start going through here, reading in the data and getting that set up, the package tplier is meant to replace a lot of the data preparation necessary for TFLs. So tplier is a package written by myself and some of my developers here at Taurus. What you get is to start to get that character formatted data to put that together. And then you can see that this starts to resemble the demographics table that you need to produce. And we're abbreviating a lot of that programming away that you would need to do all the character formatting, to do all the grouping, and trying to make that syntax nice and concise, flexible, and then ultimately getting that into a presentation ready format so that you can pop it out in your RTF files. If you open the RTF files that were output down on your in the demo folder, you can see some of that. And even today, I want to show you version 1 of tplier was just released, and why R can be exciting in what we do. We didn't really cover Shiny. We didn't cover, we showed you a little bit of R Markdown, but a lot of what that can do. When you start looking at this code that we can do to summarize data, and the development that's been put into this, tplier in that same syntax also helps it make it so that you can, in a Shiny application, you can build things like this where you have some click-through capability to jump in and click a results cell and get down to the numbers that are produced, or the data that produced that result itself. I'm dropping the link to this application in your chat. This is what I'll be talking about in my presentation tomorrow, a little bit of how this works and the enhancements that we've made in tplier. But the idea here is that there's a lot that you can still jump into and explore in this world of R programming, and some of the tools available to you in the language itself. It's an exciting world to dive into. The third-party packages allow people to develop these great things and share them with you. Shiny is an amazing tool. In the world of the tidyverse, the visualization capabilities built into ggplot, what you can do with interactive graphs, and a lot of this to get dangerous with it isn't large expansions off of some of the stuff that we cover today. Again, that demographics table, we try to squeeze that down into these lines, and then there's this chaining of functions to help modify. But it's a really exciting world. So I hope that you've at least come out of this enthused to look into it a little bit more, enthused to see what else R has to offer, that you're not finding it necessarily as scary as it might be in learning a new language. You guys as SAS programmers know the fundamentals of data manipulation. So this is more like trying to learn Spanish instead of learning how to speak if you already know English. So you have this paradigm with which you look at data. We wanted to draw some parallels for you today. There's a lot that's going on in R and pharma. There's a lot that's going on in the R world all the time, and it's just growing and becoming more exciting. So I just hope that you guys want to learn more, and I hope that you enjoyed this time. We are out of time today, so we've enjoyed doing this workshop for you all. I hope that you had fun. Again, this environment, I'll leave this up for another 2 days and try to move these projects into your workspace. You have the link to the website, so you have the reference material that we've provided today. We don't take this down. This is just static and we leave it up. So that will be there for you to review. And additionally, I think that we have the GitHub link to the materials itself, but that is also on the Taurus's GitHub that we have available for you.
Thank you, Michael. Good class, and you and Jessica you all will be seeing them tomorrow. So you get to meet them in person and you can ask questions.
Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing those will be there tomorrow.
Yes, thank you.
And as Jess knows, I get too excited answering questions, especially if they're technical. So if you got a hard one, I'd love to take it on.
Yeah, and we also, I think between 4:30 to 5, we actually have another half-an-hour open session for Q&A. So that is also another chance to ask you guys questions. And this will include also the virtual attendees, so not just on site.
Great.
Yep. Okay.
And Nick was here to help us too. Again, thank you, Nick. If you're still in the meeting here, Nick blows me away as a developer with some of the stuff that he's put together as well. So if you have questions on this tomorrow, I do believe Jess, Nick, and I will all be there.
Yes.
So we all love to talk about R.
Okay. So any other things before we close up, because it's time?
For SDE, do they have comes with papers also?
At the
I mean, the one-day event when the presentation, does a
we have the
presentation-
slides. Yeah, we're going to have the slide posted a few days after the conference. Yeah, we always do. We have them posted on our website.
Oh, okay. No paper involved.
No, this is just a one-day event. I'm not going to ask the presenter to write a full-blown paper. So
I see. Okay,
I
thank you.
appreciate that, Margaret.
so
Thank you guys very much. This was very helpful.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank
Great
See
introduction.
you guys tomorrow. for those
Thank
who are
you.
attending
Thank
today.
you. Bye.
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 Hi, everyone.